Finding your calling is something that half the planet is busy with, but almost no one knows what this process is. You will hear from every iron the call to follow your dream, start your own business, do what you like, but very rarely will these slogans be followed by any constructive continuation. So today I will correct this injustice and create a visual instruction for everyone who wants to find themselves. First of all, looking for a calling is a pretty bad idea. In 2018, a study was published that found that those of us who are looking for our calling expect a continuous flow of motivation from our work, and more often than others, simply give up new activities if they turn out to be too difficult or inconvenient. This is because calling seems to us to be something very easy, endlessly joyful, something that does not require much effort and constantly brings joy, since it comes naturally. However, in reality, any activity requires constant mental tension, titanic discipline, and fanatical commitment to your path. No matter how pleasant the work is for you, one day it will become boring. No matter how inspired you were at the beginning, apathy will soon set in. And finally, no matter what your salary is, you will have to force yourself. That is why finding a purpose seems such an impossible task. You take on a new business, and 6 months later, as always, you can barely wake up for work. It is hard to call this a calling. That is why you need to look not for a purpose, but for a business in which you can become a master. Only mastery can give meaning to an activity. At the beginning of the path, we get used to it, make mistakes and learn, and only having completely mastered the skill through blood and sweat and tears can we say with confidence, "Yes, this is my business." A beginning writer often copies the styles and ideas of others, and only over time, having survived several creative crises, he understands that now he too has something to say, that he has formed something unique, something that can be expressed only in his words. At this moment, the writer's calling is born. Not immediately, when he took up pen and paper, not in the first month of disciplined work, and not even after a year. Sometimes it takes decades of stubborn, persistent work. In short, both modern science and history lessons say one thing: do not look for yourself, but create. However, you cannot create yourself in any business that seemed cool to you. Short legs do not predispose to professional sports, and high sensitivity to police work. Therefore, secondly, know what you are predisposed to. We are all very different, and each of us has a unique psyche. This is why many countries use psychological tests before hiring to better understand what kind of candidate they have in front of them. One of these tests is the Big Five. After passing it, you will learn your own needs and predispositions. Here is one of the indicators: pleasantness. I scored 77 points on this parameter, which means that I don't particularly like competing and elbowing people around me for my own benefit. Business wars are not my thing. I am also very inclined to introversion, which means that working with clients will be difficult for me. I also like to take risks. The better you understand your needs, the easier it will be to choose a direction for development. Therefore, the second test is Myers-Briggs typing. I advise you to take it on several sites and repeat the test in 6 months, and consider the most frequently repeated result as your own. This test has a huge number of indicators and professional recommendations that were personally very useful to me. So now you understand your needs better, but do not rush to get a higher education. Give yourself time to check. There is nothing worse than studying at a university for 5 years, and then discovering that you do not like sociology or business at all. It is advisable to first spend a couple of years testing different jobs. Therefore, thirdly, allow yourself to experiment. For example, I thought for a long time that I would like being a programmer, until I actually tried it. It took me literally a month of hard work to start hating programming, despite the good salaries. So, before you put your whole life on the line, it's a good idea to find out what you're doing it for. Do you like working with your hands? Get a job as an apprentice, then as a mechanic's assistant, then as a sculptor, and feel what you liked most about each profession. Do you like working with people? Get a job in the sales department, as a concierge, or as an animator. In just a year, you'll begin to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are. You'll begin to develop a taste for a certain activity, and then you can think about education. So, let's sum it up. Don't look for a purpose, but figure out your predispositions. Once you know what you're inclined to, try out a few professions. Soon you'll understand what you want to master, and then invest in your craft to the fullest. Don't abandon it in moments of personal crisis. Work harder than others. Give it all your time, And one day you'll find yourself among the few who can confidently say, I know why I live.